my gosh, that entire confrontation with Kitt was so confusing. I was not even processing what I was reading. I was not understanding in what direction is this shit going. Hey guys, Nina here and welcome back to More Than Fiction. So today we're going to be discussing Fearless by Lauren Roberts, the third book in the Powerless trilogy. I've already discussed the previous two books and it's going to be a similar vibe with this one, I think. I have mixed feelings again. Certain things I loved, other things I hated or severely disliked. And yeah, today it's not gonna be any different. It's gonna be a chaotic chat because this was kind of a chaotic book, like let's be real. Okay, spoiler warning obviously for Fearless, also Powerless and Reckless, so if you haven't read it, what are you doing here? But yeah, I don't even know where to begin. This is actually gonna be difficult. But let's just state what we learn, right? So at the beginning, Paedyn is obviously getting proposed to by Kitt. And in Reckless, we were also shocked by this. We didn't understand what the fuck is happening. In my head, I was kind of convinced that Kitt is somehow doing this for the good of the kingdom. I was thinking that maybe Paedyn is like a royal from another kingdom, since we didn't know who her real birth parents were. And that Kitt somehow found this out, and that now he has to marry her to bridge the gap between these kingdoms because they're obviously like poor and they need financial help. They're not stable enough. And partially, I kind of guessed this right? I mean, at least the way he explained it at first. Like, I was so happy about it. So essentially what he said is that he wants to marry Paedyn because she's an ordinary, a very well-known ordinary. And he wants to welcome the ordinaries back because his father left the kingdom in an awful financial situation because he was just so obsessed with ridding the world of the ordinaries that he just didn't care about the rest of it, right? And Kitt, he wants to correct this mistake. He wants to do better. He doesn't necessarily care about the ordinaries. It's not about uniting the people. It's just helping the kingdom thrive, right? To make it like successful again and rich and powerful. Paedyn, like, she's at the beginning, she's kind of annoyed by this, but she's aware that this is the step in the right direction, and of course she accepts the proposal because if she can help and make a change in any kind of way, of course she's gonna do it. You know, to me this wasn't like a very powerful argument from the beginning. You know, the fact that he wants to marry her. I feel like he could have married another royal from another kingdom, you know what I mean? There are many ordinaries out there to choose from, and you're gonna choose your father's murderer, you know? And it just created another complicated situation for him because he had to prove to the other elites why he's doing this and why this is a good thing, right? He probably would have had to do it anyways, but the fact that Paedyn also murdered the previous king, that made it even more difficult. So it's like he literally complicated everything for himself. I know that Paedyn is like a very well-known ordinary, so you can maybe argue everyone knows who she is. She was in the trials and she already won, so that's a plus, you could say. But of course these people don't see it like that, so it was just, why Paedyn, you know? It's not well explained in my opinion. So this is already a loophole, if you ask me, that I was kind of annoyed by, but I decided to ignore it. I didn't want to dwell on it too much because if I did, I would literally not enjoy the book then at all, because the basis it stands on, like, just crumbles and it just doesn't work, right? But, you know, this is a podcast. I have to state it. And anyways, Colum, the person that's helping him now, he was the resistance leader in the previous book that we met. He was in the dungeons when he was captured after that resistance fight, and Kitt had a word with him. That's like their explanation, that they started talking and Colum explained everything to him. He just explained everything so well that Kitt just saw that it makes sense. And I'm not saying that this doesn't make sense. Like, it actually kind of does. Like, sure, is Kitt really trusting Colum, a person he just met? That's already kind of sketchy, but at the same time, Kitt is, in the first book, he is described as this kind of an idealistic kind of a character. You know, he wants to see the good in people, and the fact that he protected and defended his father the way he did says a lot. I actually hated Kitt in the first book because of this. I hated the fact that he stood up for someone like his dad instead of his brother, who was tortured by the said dad, right? I hated Kitt. And then in the second book, I kind of started liking him a little bit more because he seemed so complex with his inner monologue, and his inner battle. Like, on one hand, he wants to prove himself to this father because he just wants to earn his love and respect. But on the other hand, he is kind of aware that his father was a douche. So that made him complex, because in the first book, he was just a douche, to me at least. He was like, yeah, I'm an angel, I'm really nice, I'm like a golden retriever kind of character. But when his dad was mean and was torturing Kai, he literally didn't say anything, he didn't protect him, and he's supposedly the older brother. So, I never really had much love for Kitt. But here, his explanation, like I said, made sense. And, finances don't lie. If you get the paperwork and you see that everything's in shit, of course you have to do something, and of course you have to connect with the other kingdoms to achieve this. It literally makes sense. So I believed him, but I didn't believe Colum, okay? I was so sketched out by Colum from the previous book already. I just remember the conversations they had, Kitt and Colum. They were talking about the 3 pillars that his dad ruled by. Meaning it was benevolence, bravery, and brutality, right? The 3 Bs. And the way they were talking about this, it was like they were reminiscing. Like, oh, the good old days when the good old king ruled the way he did, So it felt like Colum was on the king's side. And there was also this sentence in Reckless, like a brief sentence, when Kitt said that his dad kept subtly pushing him towards Paedyn. Like, he encouraged him to hang out with Paedyn, right? And that did not leave my head. And in my head, I was like, well, obviously, the king was working with Colum. He was his mind reader or whatever. And Colum told him about the entire plan. And King knew that Kitt has to show Paedyn that tunnel so that she brings the resistance to them and that they can slaughter them in the same place all at once. Literally, that was my main theory, and I couldn't let it go coming into this book. It really did seem at the beginning like Colum was convincing, he was super nice to Paedyn, she trusted him, like they had these nice conversations. Also, like I said, the way Kitt explained the entire plan at the beginning, it just made sense. But I just couldn't forget about these contradictions in the second book. So I just knew that something was up and that the big plot twist in regards to Colum was coming. I just didn't know what their motives might be for involving Paedyn necessarily. I mean, yeah, she's an ordinary, but if Colum was really working against this, why would he, in that case, want to help an ordinary? Because essentially what he was doing was now helping the ordinaries. If Kitt's plan was true, that was the messed up thing. I believed Kitt. I believed he wants to help. I believed he's good, but I didn't believe Colum. So I was like, why? Maybe he's just trying to cover up his tracks. I don't know. It was confusing. I just knew something was smelly. I also had, like, somewhere in the middle, I had this theory that Colum is a mind controller too, that he controls Kitt. Sometimes there were like instances when Kitt was just being really like not himself, or eventually when he was like becoming sicker and sicker, right? I actually told myself, well, this is probably like a side effect of Colum mind controlling him. I was really convinced that Colum is that one mastermind behind it all, and that Kitt is just like, good old Kitt, right? And of course, Paedyn and Kai believed it along with us. Well, we'll get to that in a bit. Another thing, this book starts off with a prologue, just like the second one did, Reckless, when we were in Kai's head and he was mourning a person named A. And if you've listened to my Reckless episode, you already know why I didn't like that. And I kind of didn't like this prologue either. I don't feel like it adds anything to the story, even now that we know who these shadowed figures were. I mean, do we know really? This is my theory, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Mac and Kitt, right? So one of the shadowed figures, it's written from a third person's perspective, And he basically is saying like nothing can save him from this fate, not even that persuasive gentle voice. And I think this is like Adina. He probably hears her, she's probably like telling him not to do the shit, and yet he still is doing it. And of course this other man, he's paying him to do something, and he's saying it needs to look real, understand, make me believe you. And he's like, I will. It's obviously about the third challenge, in which Mac had to fight Paedyn, and he had to pretend that he was Kai, right? Because like an illusionist was working on him, so he looked like Kai. He also had to behave and fight like Kai, and this is what Kitt probably means when he says, make me believe you, right? And also this other figure, meaning Mac, he asks Kitt then, why does he want to do this? And Kitt says, every brutal act is born of love. That understanding alone draws together even the most unlikely of allies. Even hooded and shrouded in shadows, these two strangers have never felt so seen. So, you know, they are both in pain because they both love certain people that they feel like, well, Mac, in his case, the person he loves is dead, and he's doing this for her, right? He's being brutal because of the love he feels for her. And the same for Kitt. He's being brutal because of the love he feels for Kai. In his delusional head, Paedyn is taking Kai away from him. Ugh, that is such a mess. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm gonna get to that later. Another thing, I felt like the previous two books were really good when it comes to romance. You know, that's this writer's strength. Well, the plot and all of the complexities, not so much, okay? But in this book, I don't know, at least at the beginning, I wasn't digging Kai's and Paedyn's romance that much, because I felt like the banter was missing. They were just being all sappy and, you know, sad. Oh, now you have to marry Kitt, you know. And of course, it's understandable, but I don't know. I love their relationship because of those banters going on and them just teasing each other all the time. And eventually, like at about 30%, I feel like it changed. It started happening here too. But, you know, what was also a little bit tasteless for me was how Paedyn essentially lied to Kitt's face when they had like this conversation, and she was literally like, you don't have to worry about anything when it comes to me and Kai. Nothing is happening there. Nothing is going on. And I'm just wondering, like, if you already see that Kitt has his suspicions, he's not a stupid dude, okay? He obviously sees something going on between the two of you, and it's obviously making him sad for whatever reason. Why just not come clean? You know, why just not say like, yeah, okay, fine, I do kind of feel something for Kai. We really bonded in the trials, and that didn't just disappear. It just can't happen overnight. But maybe eventually, like, if you give me the chance, I can try or something, you know, because Paedyn, in her delusional little mind, she was kind of willing to try. She was kind of willing to make it work just so that the ordinaries can finally have like a safe space in the kingdom. She wanted unity, right? And she was willing to sacrifice for that unity. But like, just give him a sliver of honesty. Just offer him a little bit. Don't lie straight up to his face and be like, no, nothing's going, like, seriously? And then in the next scene, they're like pretending again and kissing, and it was just wrong. Like, we know now that Kitt was essentially an asshole. He didn't care about Paedyn. He wanted her actually dead all along. But still, we didn't know that at the time, and she didn't know that at the time. They didn't know that at the time. So that choice didn't make sense to me. Just come clean, you know? And you know, if Kitt, like, really loves his brother, he would understand too. You know what I mean? Because sure, his dad pushed him towards Paedyn, but this is something that I've already discussed in the first book. Like, we didn't know that at the time. So Kai could argue, like, you knew that I like this girl, you knew I was into her, and you still went after her. So, you know, it's not Kai's problem that Kitt went after someone he was obviously into, someone who was into him, and then got heartbroken. You know what I mean? If you're so close to your brother, why not have like one normal conversation with him about the girl both of you supposedly like? They never had one honest conversation, and I feel like that's a big problem when it comes to the series. There's a lot of tell and no show. You know, the author keeps explaining to us how these characters are super close, how amazing they are, what kind of a bond they have, but she doesn't really show it. Just like when do Kai and Kitt have like a normal, honest, open conversation? Literally right before he dies. Is it really that difficult to just sit down and talk? And there were like a lot of moments when Kai was noticing that Kitt is like sickly, that he's coughing, that something's odd with him, and he would be like, for a second there, are you alright? And then Kitt would be like, dismiss him and be like, yeah, I'm fine. And then Kai would just forget about it and go back to kissing Paedyn. You know what I mean? Like, if you care about someone, no, you're gonna sit their ass down and you're gonna be like, what the fuck is happening to you? What's wrong with you? You're gonna tell me right now. Like, are you kidding me? If I saw my sibling super sick, I would literally lock them in a closet or something until they told me what the fuck was happening. So this was also very frustrating a lot of the times. Like, it was so plainly obvious, like, at least if the author wrote it in a way in which it wasn't or something, but he was literally like super skinny, super pale, just like death. He was described like death, and they didn't say or do more about it. So where's the love here, you know? And also a lot of the times it was like mentioned from Kitt's point of view about how he didn't see their father the way Kai did because he didn't treat him like that. You know, he was better with him or something. But this is also a lot of telling, no showing. Like, we didn't have like one memory from Kitt's point of view in which this would be proved. Like, where I would be like, oh my gosh, Kitt's dad was so much better with Kitt. No, actually quite the opposite. Like, in the previous book, I got the feeling that, yeah, Kai's dad didn't torture Kitt in the same way, like physically and, you know, like that, but mentally. He also didn't really show him love. He was cold towards him. And now that we got Edric's point of view, we actually saw that that was the case. He never showed love to either of them. So I'm just, again, like, not understanding how was he so much better with Kitt. It just, to me, this just screams that Kitt was just delusional. And so him losing his mind at the end of the day wasn't that shocking at all, actually, because he was always kind of delusional. He always kind of craved this love from his dad. And yeah, I mean, I'll get to that later, but it's a complex situation. I didn't want the story to go that way. I wanted Kitt to be good. I wanted him to have a happy ending, okay? So subjectively speaking, no way I'm into this. But, you know, Kitt wasn't like the sharpest cookie out there. You know? And I'm not sure if you've noticed this, guys, but Kitt's way of thinking was actually literally told to us at the beginning. You know, it was foreshadowed, really. So, why obey a man when I can be a far greater one? I once thought father's plans for this kingdom were worth my unflinching loyalty, but now I see that they are not. So, of course, at the time when I read this, I was like, okay, a greater one. You know, he wants to be like a better man. He wants to be a better person. And he now sees that his dad was a shitty son of a bitch, and he doesn't want to be like that. That's how I thought about it, because that's what I wanted to believe. But now, when you go back, you can see that he meant it entirely differently. He like wanted to be great in the sense of like, I don't know what kind of an emperor, conqueror, master of elites, like fucking fucked up mentality, but it can literally be explained either way. We just saw what we wanted to see, or at least I did. And then Paedyn, she was kind of disappointed here because she noticed that this is solely to save Ilya. It's not about uniting the people. That's what she wanted. And he says, I do this to make us great. And she's like, you don't care for a unified kingdom? And he's like, that's not why I'm doing this. It's like he didn't even lie about it. He didn't even lie. He literally said, I'm doing this to make us great. Literally what he told them again at the end. But yeah, my mind never went in that direction because I really hoped that Kitt was this like golden retriever puppy character. The character that she kind of portrayed in the first book. And like I said, I didn't like him in the first book. At the beginning I did, but then when I saw he doesn't stand up for Kai, in that sense I didn't. But still, he was supposedly kind-hearted at his core, right? So, you know, for his core to now turn out to be completely evil, that's just mind-blowing, right? And also just reading about the distance between Kitt and Kai, you know, like Kitt mentioned so many times how sad he feels, like how he feels like his brother isn't there anymore with him. And Kai, he kind of kept repeating like, we're still brothers, we're always gonna be close. But something fishy was going on all the time, and it was like literally staring at us in our faces. And like from Kai's point of view, I felt like this is such a sad thought process. I nod along, hoping my fading smile doesn't portray the sadness I suddenly feel. The Kitt I saw mere minutes ago was a glimpse of the boy I grew up with, the boy I loved before I'd even understood the meaning of the word. And I wish so badly to hold on to that familiar version of him, rip the crown from his head before it seeps into the body beneath. Ugh, this broke my heart because at the time, yeah, again, we don't know what Kitt's plans are, but of course, like, it makes sense that once you become king, that once you get this kind of a big responsibility, you change. Like, you can't help but change. Like, this is such a big thing to put on a young man's shoulders, right? And Kai was noticing the difference, and it was just sad seeing that, you know, the distance. I just wish, I don't know, there was like a chapter instead of like from Kai's point of view, when he didn't go to Paedyn's bedroom to hang out with her, he'd go to Kitt and, you know, challenge him in some kind of a game or something. Because, I mean, when you think about it, Kai did really distance himself from Kitt. You know, he, instead of like hanging out with him, he would go hang out with Paedyn. And I mean, I still feel like Kitt at the end was delusional, but the love he felt was too much. It almost felt like he's in love with Kai, not that he just loves him as a brother, like he's in love with him or some fucked up way. I was actually kind of scared that we were gonna get that reveal. Oh my gosh, thank Jesus Christ that didn't happen, right? But yeah, you kind of do feel for Kitt, because even Kai notices the distance, and yeah, instead he lies to him about Paedyn and he pretends that he's not into her. You know what I mean? So it leaves a bittersweet taste in your mouth. At the beginning, before we got that confrontation between Kitt and Paedyn, like I mentioned before she lied straight up to his face, there were like moments between Kai and Paedyn that I still found cute, you know, and they weren't kissing at the beginning, they were just like teasing each other. They would never actually kiss, and I would actually roll my eyes and be like, this is so unrealistic, they have so much chemistry, they're so attracted to each other, and they never once kiss, you know. But then after she confronted Kitt and was like, no, nothing's happening, that's when they actually started kissing and they started being super intimate and stuff. And I'm like, well, this is totally reversed, right? But yes, another thing that I was super surprised by is that we got Edric's point of view, the kings, right? Their dad. At the beginning, I didn't see the sense of this. I was just like, this guy is dead, okay? And he was evil. So anything that we really find out about him now, can't we just like find that out from someone else's point of view? You know what I mean? Like from Kitt's memories or Kai's memories. I mean, now that we found out so many secrets, now we know, but even those secrets could have been revealed to us through Kai's mom or something. I was just so mad about this because I wanted Kitt's perspective. Like I said, he got interesting in the second book. So now that we're not getting his perspective, I was like, well, why the fuck not? Now I know, because she totally blindsided us with whatever happened, and if we were in his head, we'd know all along, so that couldn't have worked, right? But yeah, at the beginning, I was just frustrated. But I guess, you know, at the end, it did kind of work. Like, we did find out a lot of information before they found that out, so it was kind of shocking, you know, especially when that reveal happened about the baby girl being born. I was like, immediately, when it said baby girl, oh no. I was just like, oh my gosh, oh no. And then it said, like, literally, it was the last sentence of that chapter, she is powerless. I just literally like, I don't know. I was just in shock. My reaction was, I wanted to Google shit. I wanted literally to go to Google and find this out, because in my head, I was like, what the fuck does this mean? That she's related to the guy she's marrying and to the guy she's in love with? No, I knew that something was gonna happen with Kai, that's not gonna be the case. Like, no way, Jose, because they literally were smooching all the time, they were intimate, they were lovey-dovey. No way would the author ruin that like that. Hell no. So I knew something was gonna happen there, but I was just scared nonetheless, right? So yeah, that point of view turned out to be good for, the shock effects, I guess. We found out a lot of juicy information from there. I also was thinking that maybe the writer wants us to feel for Edric, like that she's trying to humanize him with these chapters, but very soon, obviously, I found out that that's not the case. And I'm glad that that's not the case. Some characters are just evil, and some people are just evil, and we don't have to rationalize and explain everything. Even though I do love a good morally gray character. But yeah, Edric was obviously not it, and I'm glad that's the case. You could argue that Kitt is, but Kitt is just stupid at this point, so we'll get to that later. I have said we'll get to that later too many times already. Okay, moving on. Now, the thing is that Kitt and Paedyn are engaged and no one is accepting this. Now she has to somehow prove herself to the stupid people of Elia, to the stupid elites who are just stupid and stupid and stupid, okay? And the way for her to do this is to have her own personal trials. Oh my god, you guys. The way I screamed of frustration when I read this, it just screamed Katniss from the Hunger Games when she had to go into the Hunger Games again. And now she has to go again through the trials. Well, it's so unnecessary. It literally didn't have to be the trials. They could just say that they're gonna test her, just normally, that she just has to prove herself by doing some kind of challenges or just doing things that a queen is supposed to do, I guess. Not that a queen is supposed to go to scary caves and retrieve shit and almost drown and I don't know what, but I mean, a diplomatic visit, that makes sense. Being capable as a warrior makes sense. Being resourceful makes sense. It could just be just a normal test for her to just show that she's capable. It doesn't have to be the trials. That, I just rolled my eyes so hard at that. And let's not mention the fact that she was already in the trials, which means that she already did prove herself, didn't she? She basically fooled everyone. All of these super smart, superior elites were fooled by the 17-year-old girl. Or was she 16 at the time? I don't know. You know what I mean? She fooled you. Ugh. She did the trials already and she survived. Almost won. What do you want from her? But on a positive note, so that I'm not completely negative, Paedyn did have some really good moments in this book with her speeches, I think. One of the sentences that I was really riled up by. So bow at my feet with a sneer if you must. I won't see it with your face to the ground. I'm just bitch, yes! Say it louder for the people in the back, for real. And after she goes through her last trial, she says, I am power earned, not gifted. I became one of you, observant enough to pose as a psychic, strong enough to survive your trials. Over and over, I have proved myself worthy of your loyalty, but I have faced far worse things than my own powerlessness. I once wore this carving with shame, but now it is proof of my survival. No ability could have withstood what I alone have. A king left his mark upon my heart, and now I will leave mine across his kingdom. I got goosebumps. This is a good speech. And I also really like the moment when they were dancing in the ballroom and she was insanely drunk and she just dragged Kitt and Kai along and they were all dancing in a circle and just being goofy, and she said that she has the decree that everyone has to dance and that this is gonna be happening much more often now that she'll be queen or something like that. And it was so cute and so funny, and I really liked this moment of joy. And I think I actually saw a comment online about this exact moment, this exact scene, and someone was saying how childish she's acting in that moment. And I'm she's drunk. The girl's drunk and she is 18 years old when you think about it. So yeah, when she's drunk, probably her age is showing a bit more, right? I don't know, I liked it because it was such a relaxed moment. They were all laughing, they were dancing, they were having fun, and it was rare in this book. In this book, a lot of things were serious, whether it was Kai and Paedyn being depressed because they can't be together, or whether it was Kitt with his puppy eyes and his sad love for Kai or Paedyn. At the time, we didn't know who he's mourning, really. So, everything was pretty heavy and sad. So when you get this kind of a moment, you treasure it, right? And I really liked it. So there were really moments that I also obviously did like in the book, not just hate it. And a lot of bantering also between Kai and Paedyn, that I was just being like, oh, and cute, and just loving it, just like I did in the last 2 books. And anyway, now back to the trials, I guess. So the first trial was that she had to go to the desert, basically, and retrieve the crown from this long lost queen that is like buried there. And that's what she does. And, there's not much to say there. Like, these trials, they also didn't feel really... I didn't really feel the tension, because obviously I knew that she was not gonna die in that cave. You know what I mean? So reading that wasn't that interesting to me, again, and it was kind of annoying because now she was going off to this trial alone, while I was actually a lot more interested in Kai. Kai is like my favorite character from these books, so I want to know more about him. And if she's like going on these trials by herself, that means that they're gonna be separate, and I'm gonna have to be reading about her, and Kai's gonna be over there, and it's just gonna be boring. You know what I mean? So I wasn't into it from that perspective. And while she was, by the way, at this first trial, Kai visited his mom. His mom, she was sick because she's so heartbroken about her awful, amazing, awful husband. Jesus, this woman. I already complained about her in the previous books. I think in the first one, like, if Kitt annoyed me because he didn't stand up for his brother, this woman I hated and I despised because she didn't stand up for her freaking child. Are you kidding me? And now, what I had to read in this stupid freaking book, like, why do we have this woman? Honestly, she should have died already. I'm sorry. Just awful, awful person and mother. So, what she says is, I thought I was broken after losing Ava, but it seems that the loss of your father will be the death of me. Are you seriously comparing the loss of your child to the loss of an awful person, an awful human being? I know she loved him, but what the fuck? Innocent child in comparison to this monster who killed millions and tortured your son. Are you shitting me right now? And Kai, of course, his response, normal. My teeth grind together at her words and everyone I wish to say in return. I could never imagine father deserving more of my grief than Ava. And when I look at my mother in this moment, I'm angry that she ever let her daughter be a secret. Die a secret. But I say none of this to the woman on her deathbed. I'm just like, thank you. I mean, he didn't say it to her face, fine, she's his mom, she's dying. Okay. Imagine her dying in the next 5 minutes and he would have stated all of those things. He would probably feel awful, even though it's true. So fine. But I'm glad that he is aware of this, and I'm happy for his thought process that we can see that he is aware of this, that I'm not alone here. Because in the first book, he was kind of defending his mom. He was like, she was the only good parent I had. And I'm like, no, she was not a good parent, my boy. No, she was not, I know that, in her relationship with the king, she obviously, the king was dominant, what could she really do? But come on, at least stand up, say something. Everything she did was just throw balls and pretend like she lives this happy life with an amazing husband who loves her. How can you love someone that treats your son like that? How? Oh my gosh, mind-blowing. This character, pointless. Honestly, what did the writer even want to achieve with her? Just a brainless woman. A brainless woman. And then we even find out that the king wasn't Kai's dad at all. So, he wasn't even his dad. So she literally let this stranger, a man that's actually a stranger to him, if you think about it, treat him like that and use him like that. And she fell in love with him. We can see in the flashbacks with Edric that that they didn't get along at first because obviously it was an arranged marriage. They didn't even know each other. She had a son from before. And this man, who was now supposed to take care of her and her son, tortures her son, and she falls in love with him? My people, my guys, my friends, are you listening? Are you hearing this? I'm sorry, I know the mom, Kai's mom, isn't that relevant of a character, honestly, fine, but I'm just so pissed about this. I wish she wasn't there at all. Why was she even necessary? Later on, Kai and Paedyn, they went to her and they asked her for answers about his heritage, But like we have Gale for that, for example. You know, we have the servants. Like one servant might have finally told him if she was literally here just for that reveal, you could say, and she wasn't even necessary for that. And before we move on from this, she also tells Kai to stay away from Paedyn because she belongs to Kitt now, that she's Kitt's. And this is so gross, and I'm so repulsed by it, because we later on find out that she was always aware that Paedyn was Kitt's half-sister. So she knew. And she still didn't say anything. She would literally allow Kitt to marry his half-sister. And supposedly she also cares for Kitt. I mean, woman, you have a weird way of showing love. You let one son, blood son, be tortured by a person, by a man who isn't even his actual dad. And your other son, your adopted son, you would let him marry his blood. Like, I'm literally gonna throw up right now. This worst character ever. And she's not even like the worst character in the sense, you know, you have like really awful characters that are just written so well. You know, they're written so well that you love to hate them. You know, you have those kinds of characters. No. She's the worst character ever because she's just not. She's barely a character. She's just there and she's just awful. And the writer didn't like even think her through at all. And I actually resent her for this. She's just disgusting. Now let's move on from this awful character that should have died ages ago. There were also a lot of moments when Kai was kind of jealous of Kitt. Obviously, I mean, he's marrying the woman he loves. And then the moments from Kitt's point of view were just weird because he didn't say that he's into Paedyn, but sometimes the way he acted, it felt like he is. And I was really annoyed by this because what kind of a love triangle even is this? You know, if you're making a love triangle, make it, you know, real. You know what I mean? Make it like Paedyn is really tortured over these two brothers. Like, yeah, it sounds shitty, but if you're already doing a love triangle, it should be a proper one. This wasn't really a love triangle. This was just weird. It was just such a weird fucking situation. Like, Pae, of course, thankfully didn't feel attracted to the brother at all, so thank God for that, but we didn't know that all along. We know now why the writer did this. She didn't want to be that twisted, right? But, you know, why put it there then at all? Like, just make it clear that Kitt doesn't have any actual feelings for Paedyn. No, but of course it had to be mysterious, and of course we couldn't have found out immediately that it's all about Kai. But it was just really dreadful to read that, especially when you kind of do think that Kitt is a good person, and now he has to go through all of this. It just sucks. Such a tragic story, right? But, you know, like I said, I didn't forget about the fact that he never stood up for Kai, and I'm glad that Kai didn't either. And there was this really one good moment when Kai kind of snapped at him for it. So Kai and Kitt are reminiscing about the good old days when they would be getting drunk at balls, and, you know, Kitt says, like, I wish these balls were our biggest concern now. And Kai says, I wish they were my biggest concern then too, but I was busy being cut open by our father. Kitt, of course, feels awful by this, and I'm just like, yeah, just tell him. Like, remind him. I feel like he needs a reminder every now and then. Again, a lot of saying, no showing. Kitt is like, I'm so sorry, you have to go through that, but he wasn't like that with me. Yeah, because he was such an angel with you, dude. He really showed you the love, you know? He really deserved your love and respect. Top notch. Like, Kitt is just, he is not all there. Like, he was never all there. So I'm not that shocked by the ending, like I said before. Okay, so then the second trial was benevolence. Paedyn basically had to go to this kingdom across the seas, across the shallows. The shallows, so obviously the sea, very turbulent. People drown, barely anyone survives. Like Jax's parents, for example, they died that way, they drowned. There's also rumors of a sea creature, like of a monster, like of a basically animal that was altered when the plague happened. So now this animal is also much more stronger, bigger, badder, and all of that. Of course, they're just rumors, but, you know, that's gonna happen. So Paedyn has to go on this adventure, and she has to deliver these roses to the queen. And these roses have some healing properties, and Ilya is really good, like really strong when it comes to its healers and everything when it comes to healing. So, you know, they would definitely appreciate these roses, like as a gesture of goodwill. Kitt also wants this queen to know that he's marrying an ordinary, so that, you know, ordinaries are now welcome back in his kingdom, all of that. Makes sense. And of course, Kai joins Paedyn. He will never let her go alone, and thank God that he doesn't, because of course the crew wants to murder her. Later on, we find out that actually that was a Kitt again, too. That was his plan. He literally told the captain to turn a blind eye to that. Damn, insane. But yeah, like, not much to say here. The queen was an interesting character, I felt like, when they met her. Such a powerful presence, you know? You kind of feel like she's such a badass, but at the same time, you don't trust her. There's something sneaky about her. And I actually have a bit of a theory when it comes to this queen. It might be completely insane, but I think she might be something other than ordinary. Like, when Kai met her, he felt something in her presence. I'm not sure what the words were exactly, but he felt a power or something. Not obviously like he does with elites. It was something he couldn't quite understand, you know? Maybe it was just the author's way of explaining that this queen has a powerful presence about her. You know, that she's just a powerful, charismatic person. That's also fair, if that's the case. Completely fair. But yeah, my theory was that she has some kind of an ability, and also it was explained that she killed her father and she got the throne, and before she ruled, their kingdom was in a disarray, everything was shitty, but once she got the throne, things started changing very fast, and she like helped save her kingdom. And Paedyn, she kind of notes this, and she's like, interesting. And I was at the same time too, interesting. How did she achieve that, you know? I feel like there's a bigger story behind that. And also, when the sea monster attacks them, Paedyn notes that the sea monster's eyes are green, okay? And these are the precise words. So when it turns its luminous green eyes on me, and I immediately noted this, green eyes, and like a million questions and all of that. Just, I don't know, the queen, her gaze was described as extremely green and piercing. Okay, and then this monster somehow has green eyes too, and the queen even asked Paedyn and Kai about the sea monster, if they encountered it. So she's aware of its existence. She might just be the monster. I don't know how this could be possible, like, we don't know, but maybe, like, the second novel is gonna be about the queen, and we're gonna find out, and if that does happen, like, just remember where you heard this theory first, okay? But yeah, of course, they survived the way back. Paedyn defeats actually the monster. You do then wonder, like, if the queen is this sea monster, why would she attack them? She obviously likes Paedyn, but maybe she just wanted to see Paedyn in action. Maybe she wanted to see Paedyn prove herself. Maybe it was actually a favor to Paedyn because she kind of believed in her, you know? And if you think about it, as soon as Paedyn attacks the monster and she, like, I think stabs him with something, the monster retreats. You could argue maybe it's badly hurt, or maybe it just achieved what it wanted to achieve, to show the crew and to the people that Paedyn is a worthy queen. Sure, it's very risky, but at the same time, if she didn't defeat the monster, then she didn't prove herself to the queen. So that's my logic behind it. Anyways, soon they return, and this is also when they notice that Kitt looks like really bad, like sicker than he did before, thinner or something. That sucked. I immediately noted it, like, you know, shit, he's sick. And that's what I thought. I just thought that that was gonna be the case, sadly, that Kitt is gonna have a tragic ending in the sense that he has, like, a disease now and that he's gonna die because of that disease. I did think it was gonna die at the end, but I just thought that maybe it's gonna be of natural causes and that it's gonna be super sad and tragic for him. We're gonna cry, we're gonna be sad about it, but a peaceful death, you know, in the arms of the people he loves, as a good, kind person he is, right? I was wrong. On another positive thing, besides hating how dishonest Paedyn and Kai were kinda at the beginning with Kitt, I mean, not just at the beginning, all the time, I also kind of liked the dynamic sometimes between Kitt and Paedyn, and I wish we got more of it. You know, when they had these moments when it was just the two of them, and they were just like talking, and Paedyn, she was kind of trying to establish that friendship again. She was aware that she's probably gonna have to spend the rest of her life with this man, so she wanted at least to have like a caring, yeah, nice friendship going on. She knew she was never gonna love him the way she loves Kai, but If at least they got along, that would be also something, right? And she wanted to achieve that. They had some nice conversations, and there was this one time when she went into his room and she showed him her scar because she wanted him to know and to feel that comfortable with him, since he will eventually probably see her if they get married. And this was one of the conversations that I kind of liked between them. She's like, this is not the man I knew. The man you knew didn't exist. And she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, I am too. You're not the girl I knew during those purging trials, he says softly. Not anymore. And you're not the boy I knew either. Now I want to know this king you've become. Kitt's voice is light, despite the weight of his words. I worry for what you will find. And I just noted this, and I was like, this is such a good dynamic. Like, this is such an honest and real conversation between them, and I wish we got more of these kinds of moments. In this book, I actually kind of wished we had less of Kai and Paedyn, like the romance aspect, because it was all the same, a lot of sadness because they can't be together and just pretending, and all of that we already got kind of in the second book. So I kind of actually wished that, we would work on this friendship between Kitt and Paedyn. Because I honestly, did believe that Kitt was turning a corner. Now that I know when he says, I worry for what you will find, now that I know what that actually means, it's awful. But at the time when I read this, I was like, oh, this is so cute, this conversation is so nice. Joke's on me. A common theme throughout this book was also Kai's dilemma about Kitt and Paedyn. Because on one hand, he loves Kitt. He's his brother. They grew up together. But at the same time, he's jealous of him. He's jealous of the future that he will have with the woman he loves. He's jealous every time they touch, every time they share a conversation that he's not a part of. It's very difficult to read because they are brothers, But the end, when Kitt is kind of like sad about it, and he's like, I knew that if it came down to it, you would actually choose her. She stole you away. He's not really wrong. Again, this phrasing, she stole you away, not okay. Like, Kai, you don't owe Kai. He's not your, puppy, right? He's your brother. So, he's acting like he's his boyfriend or something. But Kai, he was also aware of the fact that he doesn't even know what would happen if he had to choose. And at one point he actually states it plainly and obviously, if I had to run away right now, I would run away with you. He would choose Paedyn. She also has some really beautiful sentences. Usually Kai is the one with the strong declarations of love. He's the poet. But she stepped up a few times too. There was that fight when they were on their way back from that queen. She was basically like, what do you expect? Obviously we're gonna have to part ways eventually. We won't be able to keep this a secret, this relationship all the time. It's gonna have to end eventually. But then because they almost die, she basically admits to him, damn fate and duty and every other word meant to keep us apart. I want to hide with you beneath the willow tree. You are the secret I will spend the rest of my life keeping. Her voice quivers beneath the weight of such a promise. Us. Which again sounds romantic and beautiful and all of that. But when you think about the fact that she wasn't honest with Kitt about this, and now you're like, so wait, you're saying that you will basically be cheating on him behind his back? I don't know. I feel like, if you respect someone and if you care for them, just tell them the truth and then you'll see, because Kitt was also aware that they're marrying each other out of duty. But eventually they come back, and that was the second challenge, the second trial. What happens in between is also that Paedyn supposedly kills Blair. So there was always this growing animosity between Blair and Paedyn. Blair was the one who killed Adina at the end of the day. I mean, I blame the king. The king was the one who put Adina there. It was the same with Kai, if you think about it. Kai was the one who physically killed her dad, but it was actually the king who put him there and who caused that to happen. He manipulated the whole situation, and it was the same with Blair. But of course, Blair was a mean girl. Blair was always just such a bitch. She was just so awful and mean. Of course, it's harder to think rationally when it comes to her, so I didn't blame Paedyn that she hated her so much every time she saw her. I did think she wasn't gonna go through with it, I think she was gonna come to the realization that Blair is also just a pawn, that she's also just a girl who basically just did what she was taught of her entire life, what she knew to be true and correct, because she was also raised in this fucked up society, just like Kitt and Kai, that she would, come to this realization and that she would grow as a character because of it, as a person, and she wouldn't go through with it. But the fact that she did, that blew my mind, even though, of course, she's not dead. We see her at the end. And honestly, this wasn't a shock to me because I realized this early on. I don't want to say obviously because some of you might not have noticed, but I noticed that Blair and Lenny got close. I don't have examples right now, but I do remember there were instances when, I'm not sure if it was Kai, Paedyn, or both, when they kind of noticed that they were like be sitting together, they would be talking or brushing their arms together or something. And I feel like Lenny and Blair fell in love. That's my theory. Maybe this is going to be relevant. Maybe the author is planning on writing again about these characters. Maybe Blair is going to be in the novella or something. But yeah, I think that my theory is that Lenny and Blair fell in love and he saved Blair. And it was pretty obvious to me when Paedyn and him had a conversation and he tells her, well, now you're free of her. And she's like, so are you. She wasn't too bad. You only knew the part of her she had to be. And Paedyn's like, well, you don't seem too upset about her passing. He shrugs stiffly and he says, I'll see her again one day. And Paedyn after that's like, I debate scoffing at his words because I doubt Lenny will end up wherever Blair has. I'm just like, bitch, she's not dead. That's why he's so cool about it. Because, like I said, I felt like they were bonding. And if you think about it, Lenny had to spend a lot of time with Blair, right? So they were bonding, and now what? He's just totally cool about her dying? Excuse me, no. And yeah, when he says, I'll see her again one day, And then he also eventually asks Paedyn, like, when you become queen, will you, like, release me of my duty? I don't want to be an imperial anymore. In my head, I'm like, well, obviously he kind of wants to run to wherever Blair's hiding at to live happily ever after with her. That's my theory. Yeah. Gonna die on that hill. And then we have the third and final challenge or trial, and it's basically that it's a fight to the end, and supposedly Paedyn has to fight Kai. I was like, when I saw that, when he walked into that arena, I was like, what the actual fuck? What the fuck? Because I didn't think it was an illusion. I didn't know what was going on. I was just so confused as to why Kitt would do this. At the time, of course, like, even if he did secretly hate Paedyn, like, it did cross my mind in that part, like, that maybe he still actually secretly hates her, but I'm like, why would you risk Kai like that? Of course, Kai is super... I've no way in hell Paedyn could ever defeat him, but we all know that Kai loves Paedyn, and obviously Kitt's aware of it too, so I'm like, why would you risk, he wouldn't allow himself to kill her, right? It didn't make sense. So I was super confused as to what the fuck was happening. Eventually, when Kai was just like attacking her so aggressively, like he didn't feel remorse, Paedyn looked into his eyes and she was like, it wasn't even him. She started doubting everything that happened between them, actually. She was like, what if he never loved me? What if it was all a farce? And I didn't blame her because, of course, like, what will you think? You know what I mean? Like, what else is there to think, really? It wouldn't cross my mind that it's an illusion. I don't know. But then eventually he kind of switched back to himself and he told her, to play along with him or something. And in my head, that was like confirmation for me that Colum is evil and that he's a mind controller. I literally thought that Colum was controlling Kai's mind, and that's why Kai was behaving the way he was, because he wasn't literally in control of himself, but he was still strong enough to fight it, and that's why he kind of came to, and he allowed Paedyn to defeat him, basically, essentially. But yeah, then she plunged the dagger, well, he plunged it into himself, really. I was so confused. I wasn't crying. I was sad. Like, I did had tears in my eyes. Of course, Kai's my favorite character. If I would ever cry about anyone, it would be about him. But I didn't believe it. I guess you could say maybe I was being delusional, but like, come on. Really? You really think that the author would do this? You really think she would kill off Kai? No way, Jose. No way in hell, okay? No, 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 no. I did not believe that for 1 second, and I'm glad. It turned out that it was Mac all along. It was an illusion, but Mac was actually whatever Kai is, right? He has his abilities. That's why I also didn't think about it being an illusion, because in my head, Kai is the only one that has these abilities. So I'm like, even if it is an illusion, you can't make up like the fact that this guy literally has Kai's abilities, you know what I mean? But yeah, in reality, they were just hunted down, and of course some are all also in hiding, just like Paedyn was as an ordinary. So, okay, I'm not sure if this was mentioned before. Like, let me know, hit me up. Is it mentioned in the previous books that the king hunted down people who have Kai's abilities? Or is it stated that Kai is just the only one born with these abilities? Like, he's one of a kind just because he's one of a kind. I'm not sure if this was mentioned. Anyways, yeah, Mac, he dies, and Paedyn's reaction when she kills Kai slash Mac, she thinks it's Kai, she basically just like starts screaming and is like, leaning back on my heels, I unleash my anguish. It's a chilling scream, one that can be heard even in the highest stands. And I literally noted this and I said, you know, I can imagine this so well, like a movie. I can literally imagine her in this gladiator arena on her knees, bloody, traumatized, crying, screaming, you know, like that scream when you like literally just, the pain you feel can't be described. It's like, I imagine this so well. So it was a good moment, a powerful moment, sad one. But yeah, I knew. So I wasn't like that torn up about it. Now that I think about it, back on it, was this really necessary, us thinking that it was Kai? Why couldn't it have just been Mac? I mean, maybe because Kitt was like hiding the fact that there are other people out there like Kai that have powers like him. Maybe he didn't want them to know. And he also said like, now everyone will believe that you're even more powerful because you're gonna come back from the dead, right? So he basically gave him this immortality and he made him even more scary and, you know, unreachable, and that's good for Kai's image as the enforcer. So it can be explained like that, but, you know, I mean, the point was for Paedyn to prove herself against someone that's very powerful, and Mac was very powerful because he had literally the same ability as Kai. But yeah, Kai was also a really good fighter, so Kai was just a package, you know. Okay, let's explain it like that, okay? It's fine. Let's not dwell on it too long. So soon after this, when finally Paedyn finds out that Kai is well and alive, he comes to her room and they have this beautiful declaration of love. He tells her, Paedyn, I love you. Like nothing else before, I love you. And I've been waiting to tell you since I realized your eyes are my favorite color and your freckles the only constellation worth looking at. I could lie, say that you've stolen my every thought and heartbeat like the thief you are, but all of me was already yours. Pay, you are my inevitable. It's beautiful. They kept avoiding that word, and here they finally admitted it to each other. I'm like, why not sooner? Like, you of all people are aware that life is so short. You might literally die any second because of the way you live. And you still are not saying the way you feel, even though it's obvious how you feel. You know, just the 3 words, that's all that's left to confirm it. But I don't know, in their head, I guess it was like, if I say it, it makes it even more real, and we already can be together, so what's the point? And it was just also what really made me sad, and I almost cried here. I don't even know Mac, okay? Like I said, I didn't read Powerful, but when it was revealed that it is him, that was so sad. Because like I said, I didn't read Powerful, I didn't know that he has these abilities, okay? If you have, you know. So this was just so sad, and she's like, take care of her for me, she whispers atop his pale skin. Take care of her, Mac. I almost don't hear her final broken whisper. See you in the sky. Oh my god. See, I don't know if you can see, like everyone who's watching this as a video, my eyes are blurry, like teary right now. See you in the sky, this is a really beautiful line, and I can only imagine that this is something from Powerful. Right? This is probably something that Adina and Mac kept saying. It was like their little promise. And that's what he wanted to say. When he was dying, he said see, and then he died, so we didn't hear what he wanted to say, and this was it. He wanted to say see you in the sky. Even when he was dying, he was thinking of her. Oh my god, that's depressing. And I mean, let me know, guys, what you think about this whole storyline. Like, if you've read Powerful, this must be pretty depressing for you. Like, if I'm sad, I can't imagine how sad you are. I mean, I guess, like, now Mac and Adina are together somewhere, but at the same time, what was the point of their story? Like, just to make us sad? It didn't add anything to it, right? It just another depressing plot twist. Like, we don't have enough of those already. I don't know. So yeah, a tragic story. But yeah, my theory here again was kind of proven wrong for the time being when it comes to Colum. Because, like I said, I thought he was mind controlling them. So obviously that wasn't the case. So I was like, well, okay, fine. I guess I was wrong again. But soon after this, Colum and Paedyn have a conversation about certain roses. So basically they're discussing roses because she wants them as the decoration for her wedding, right? And he says, the roses from my garden will look lovely with it. And she says, this makes me pause. Your garden? How did you manage to grow anything in the short amount of time you've been here? He backs away. Well, the blooms have been very helpful. They are to thank for persuading my flowers to grow. And she's like, right. And I'm like, right. This was confirmation for me. I don't know about you guys, but this was like the ultimate confirmation that Colum is lying. I knew it immediately. This guy was the king's mind reader. He has lived at this castle for decades and he grew his little garden throughout the years that he's been living at the castle. So this felt really good to finally get this confirmation. Yeah, I loved it so much. Soon after that, the speech happens, the one that I actually read at the beginning, because now she's basically went through all of the trials. Now they have to accept her as queen, so shut the fuck up. It was a great speech. After that, they, like Kai, Paedyn, and Kitt, they get drunk a little bit in the wine cellar, and it was like a cute but sad kind of a moment when Kitt and Paedyn are basically like discussing shit, and Paedyn says something along the lines that she'll have to get used to something when it comes to Kitt, and he tells her that they're gonna have to have 2 weddings, like the big one and then the one in Loot, so that the people can, you know, see it too. And Kai is like, 2 weddings, even better. I kind of laughed at this because the sarcasm, you know, I just love it. After this, he's like, there is so much for me to do before the ceremony. I'll give you 2 some time to figure one another out. This was so sad, but I was kind of happy that Kai left because again, like I mentioned before, I wanted more bonding between Kitt and Paedyn. I didn't ship them as anything romantic, but like I said, I wanted a friendship, and when I found out that they're actually siblings, I hoped, of course, that the wedding was gonna be prevented, but at the same time that they're gonna at least bond so that, you know, when they realize they're siblings, that the bond is there and it is beautiful. You know what I mean? That they can actually be siblings. I feel like Paedyn, she's been alone her entire life. It would be amazing if she had a big brother who took care of her or something. And Kitt, a little sister, which he had in Ava, but she died prematurely, right? So, you know, I really wanted that. So I was glad that Kai kind of left and gave them this time alone. I mean, nothing much came out of this because Paedyn, again, wasn't really honest with him. Kitt kind of had to tell her, like, I figured it out all by myself. Can you stop lying? He says, like, basically, there's no need to feign surprise, Paedyn. We both know that Kai's heart belongs to you. And then she adds, and you. He loves you enough to not interfere with your plans. And he's like, time will tell. Which sucks, because now I know that it means basically after I kill you and he finds shit out, we'll see how much he really loves me. Which is so stupid. Oh my god. And then they talk about roses, and she basically says that she picked them, and he's like happy about it because his mother loved roses. She tells him also that it was really bad of the king to not allow Kitt to get to know his mother after she was gone. And she basically tells her that he probably blamed him for her death, and that if he wonders if that's why he was never like good enough for him. And it's kind of sad because when you think about it, at the end, when he's all crazy and you know, delusional, he basically blames Paedyn for it. He's like, you're the one who actually killed her. So I'm just like, what an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, you lived, let's say, with that guilt and you felt shitty about it, and now you're like doing this to her, saying this to her. I know he was being like not entirely himself because of the virus that he inserted into his body by himself. Okay, so I don't feel sorry for him there. But still, you know, it was just what a fucking asshole. Like, some people, when something bad happens to them, they learn from it and they know not to kind of, how to say, mirror that trauma onto someone else. They're aware of it and they are better because of it. And there are other people who actually are changed by that trauma for the worse. You know, they become the worst possible version of themselves. And in that moment when he said that to her, that's how I felt about him. It was like he didn't learn anything from this situation, what he grew up with his dad. He went on in the opposite direction. He became something far worse, right? And that sucks. And soon after this, the biggest plot twist happens. Kitt and Paedyn actually go through with the wedding. It actually happens. they actually kiss on the lips. Gross, now that we know they're siblings. But, I imagine it as a quick peck on the lips, so nothing, deeper, and it's also described that way, so fine. And then, after that, she has the confrontation with Colum, and here I was just, so happy, finally, it was already confirmed in my head, but now it's even more obvious, and Colum, he also slipped once before when he told Paedyn that she looks exactly like her mother. And Paedyn was like, you knew my mother? She died before I was born, so that was already weird, and she put two and two together here. So the confrontation was really good when we find out also that he's her dad, because Kitt left his mom's jewels for Paedyn so that she wears something, and she found the notes in the box. And she figured it out that Kitt's mom, had an affair with someone, and she kind of recognizes the writings and everything. At first I was confused by the handwriting and everything. I was like, so is her dad actually her dad and he had an affair with the queen or something? But no, it was actually Colum. So yeah, I am curious about Colum. Paedyn, she at one point does tell him that she thinks that he did love her, that a part of him did save her life because he couldn't go through with it because she was still his daughter, so that he wasn't entirely against her, even though he claimed he hates her and stuff. I don't know why that was inserted, since we'll never know now. I do want to believe that he at least partially cared for her. He obviously, couldn't hurt a baby, so he had a little bit more humanity in him than Edric, right? We also get that from Edric's point of view, with their conversation, and Colum does tell him, I couldn't, kill her. She was just a baby. So he has more humanity in him. And yeah, a part of him was probably, yeah, but he blamed the baby for his lover's death, just like the king, essentially. You killed my wife, and you're also an ordinary, and you did it as an ordinary. Just stupid men, right? So anyways, I thought there was gonna be a bigger deal with Colum. Once Paedyn incapacitated him, she ran to Kitt to tell him. I was really sure that Colum is gonna come on time and that he's gonna somehow use his mind control ability on Kitt, and that he was gonna get in his head and, turn him against Paedyn, and it is gonna be a problem that they're gonna lock her up, then Kai is gonna have to save her. I thought it was gonna go in that direction, because I was sure still that Kitt is on our side, and that Colum is indeed a duel, and that he can also control minds. So, yeah, I really didn't expect Kitt to turn out the way he did. But I was surprised when Paedyn told this to Kitt. She told him everything, and he immediately believed her. He was very calm about the situation. He was like, oh, so now, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm like, really, does it? This is a pretty big deal, everything she's told you, and you just believe her word for it? Just immediately? I'm like, are you really that naive? She was being honest and real, sure, but really? And then he also kind of grabbed her by the arm, and he said something like, what else did he tell you, So that also really confused me, but I still didn't think that Kitt might be working with Colum. And then he just killed him, and I was like, well, that's just weird. It was just such a weird thing, but in my head, I was like, maybe just the writer didn't do a good job of it. Might be just a writing thing, an error from her side. She wanted to get over with it as soon as possible, right? And after that, they still go through with the wedding, by the way, the second wedding at Lut. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to think about that. I guess the main wedding was already done, so I think they're already married. So I think the second one was just symbolic. I don't think it was a real thing. It was just symbolic for the people of Lut. That's how I explain it to myself. I don't want to overanalyze it and be like, they still married each other even though they know they're related. But then again, they already are married. So that one I think is just symbolic. That's how I explain it to myself. Right? We don't want it to get too disgusting. Okay, guys? Jesus. But yeah, during the first wedding, it was kind of heartbreaking when Paedyn was finally realizing what the fuck is happening. I feel like in her mind, up until that point, everything was just a distant concept. She really kind of subconsciously, I think, believed that it was not gonna happen. She tried her best, but I think a part of her still thought that she was gonna die at the end of this, and that it's not gonna come to it, and it's not gonna really happen. Even when she was waiting for Kitt to say, I do, she was still kind of, surely he's not gonna say I do, right? Then the only thing it was left for her, like she still wanted to help her people, so she was still like, yeah, I do. And it just sucked. And it was awful when you saw it from Kai's point of view then, and he was like running. He wanted to kind of stop it, but he didn't. He was too late. He couldn't believe it. And he was just like fighting the wall, he's just hitting the wall, just super mad. He couldn't believe that he lost her officially. It was kind of heartbreaking, really. But I was thinking to myself that Kitt is probably gonna die soon. And that's why he's doing this, because he wants to still, I believed in Kitt so much. I was like, yeah, Kitt is dying, so he still wants to marry Paedyn because he wants to make her queen, establish her as this powerful entity, so that when Kai replaces him, he can still continue his legacy. He can still do what Kitt wanted to do with Paedyn together, and they can be happy together. He wanted that for them. So in my head, I was like, he's still doing it for the good of the people and for them too, right? But no, wrong. So yeah, after the wedding, everything that happens, Kai takes Paedyn to her mother's room, and that's when they kind of figure out that Kai isn't Edric's son, because he can't be. Because Edric married Kai's mom after Paedyn was born. But at the time, Kai was already like a year old. He was already born. He's older than Paedyn. So it doesn't make sense. Kai was smart about it. He realized that he's probably just from another marriage. And yeah, that was the case. It was confirmed later on. They went to confront Kitt. And honestly, oh my gosh, that entire confrontation with Kitt was so confusing. I was not even processing what I was reading. I was not understanding in what direction is this shit going. Like, I don't even remember how that chapter started. I just remember that Kai and Paedyn, they went to Kitt's study because they wanted to tell him what Kai found out, right? That they're not brothers, like by blood. And then I got lost. Basically, Kai tells Kitt that they're not really brothers or something, and Kitt hisses at him. And he's like, what are you talking about? And the way he hisses it gives Paedyn pause, because she's like, this is not the husband I know. This is not the person I try to befriend. And here I'm just like, what is going on? And I actually thought to myself that, we're aware that Kitt is somehow sick. That's what we know, right? Obviously, he's dying of something. And I just thought that maybe Colum was somehow poisoning him or something, and that's why Kitt is sick and he's losing his mind. And I thought that here, when they were having this confrontation, that's something that they're gonna figure out together, and they're gonna somehow either save Kitt, or, they'll find out that it's too late, that the damage has been done, and he's gonna die because of that, right? Yeah, I didn't know it was gonna go in the direction it went. Basically, here in this conversation, what we find out is that Kitt hates Paedyn. Like, literally, he doesn't stand her. Everything was just him pretending. Like, Kai and Paedyn repeated so many times pretend in the previous book and in this one, but it was Kitt who performed the best, Kitt fooled everyone. Like, Kai and Paedyn, they were so obvious with their pretending. They fooled no one, not themselves, not Kitt, not anyone. While Kitt pretended like no other. The irony of it, right? He just fooled us all. I really thought that he wanted to establish some kind of a friendship with Paedyn, but he just felt still betrayed by her. I thought that maybe he still has some kind of weird feelings about her. That's why I was annoyed that we weren't in his head, because I wanted to see how he feels about the girl, like what is happening. But this explanation, it makes sense, because every single time when he seemed sad about it, when he seemed kind of in his head about Kai and Paedyn, it could be really either, Like, it can be about Kai or it can be about Paedyn. We all assumed it was about Paedyn, but it makes sense that it was about Kai, his brother, right? Even though, like, here, the way he's sometimes describing it, it's like his boyfriend, not brother. Like, it's weird. I mean, these whole relationships are super weird. Like, even after we find out that Kitt and Paedyn are siblings, she still refers to him as her husband. I'm like, why are you calling him your husband? And also, in Kai's thought process, he's like, she's not married, she has a husband. I'm like, is this not... That husband is her brother. Like, is this at all not odd to you? Why are you referring to him as the husband? He's the brother. Jesus Christ. He's not your brother, he's her brother. Like, get it in your heads already. It's weird. Okay, but we're talking about Kitt's, crazy pants now. he reveals to us that he knew about everything all the time, like all along. Father, Edric, he revealed his plan to get the ordinaries in one place and slaughter them. So, in that moment, when Kitt was having this conversation with his dad, he realized how his thinking is just very small. He worshipped this man. He thought he was great, that he was this mastermind. But in Kitt's head, it was like, that's really all you want to achieve? That's your ambition? Like, why when you can go so much bigger? You know, you go big or go home, man. Like, why would you want to control this one kingdom if you can control all of the kingdoms? And if all of the kingdoms can become elite and powerful and almighty under your rule? And in that moment, when Kitt had that conversation with his dad, that's when he kind of stopped worshipping him as I don't know what kind of a god, and he realized that he's just a man, and that Kitt, he's gonna be so much more. So now that you think about that little fact, Kitt was corrupt all the time, actually. Even before his dad died, he was thinking about becoming great and proving himself to him. And that's not that surprising, because that's the Kitt we know from book 1. I feel like a lot of people are probably gonna be mad about this but that's so not Kitt. He's such a good, kind person. But did we really see his kindness? You know what I mean? Like, we saw Kai describing Kitt as kind and as this really good person who was there for him, his lovely golden retriever puppy brother, right? But his actions actually showed us the opposite. Because Kitt, like I said before, he never stood up for Kai. In the first book, when Kai was standing up to his father, Kitt actually took his father's side and he stood up to Kai and he was like, what the hell do you think you're doing, you know? And Kai, in that moment, he confronted him and he told him, like, wake up, Kitt, our dad, he's a monster, and you should probably start to think about what you want in life, where you stand, instead of following him like a blind little puppy, right? And after that, what Kitt did is that he went to Paedyn and he told her to show him the slums because he wants to create an opinion of his own for himself. And in that moment, I was kind of proud of Kitt. I was like, okay, finally, he's starting to see the light. Now he's gonna see in what kind of a situation the people are living, and he's gonna wanna help them. But no, instead, he actually took Paedyn to the slums because it was his father's plan all along. So now, even when you think about it, to book 1, he was always following his dad. It was always about what his dad wanted. He even befriended Paedyn not in spite of his dad, but because of his dad, because he wanted him to befriend her. Kitt was never a person of his own, and when he realized that he could be one, it went in the negative direction, not in the positive one. So Kitt was just a piece of shit all along, just like I said from the first book. But in the middle, yeah, in Reckless, he kinda had these like fights with himself when he's like, I'm done grieving a man who was just an asshole, who didn't respect me. And sure, that's true, he did find that out, but it was never confirmed to us that he now actually changed and he wants to be better in the sense of being a better person. He just wanted to be better in the sense of being a better leader, like a greater one or whatever. So this isn't that surprising. Like, I feel like the way this was written is surprising. You know, the way he explained things, he was all crazy. He was just like comical in a way, actually, like a Cartoon Network kind of a villain, right? Dazed and crazy and, you know, out of his mind and just like crazy eyes. I can literally imagine him as this like crazy scientist or whatever. And he had like black veins because he was like inserting himself with this virus, with this disease. And again, stupid, you know, I thought in the middle of the book when I realized he was sick, I was like, oh, poor kid, now he's sick, you know, I feel so bad for him. But he actually is sick because the dumbass inserted himself with a disease. You know, he literally injected himself with a disease and now he's dying. Oh, poor kid. What do I... Let him die. Literally, what an asshole. He wasn't a good brother. He never stood up for Kai. It was all in his head. You know, it was Kai's perception. We got Kai's point of view. And Kai saw his brother as this really good, kind person. But in reality, his brother was just stupid. I'm sorry, Kitt was just stupid. He had no sense of who he is. He just followed his dad blindly, did what he told him to do, and, yeah, that's my opinion of the subject. It's sad that, his dad fucked him up the way he did. That is true. But you know what I mean? He also fucked Kai up. He was even worse towards Kai. And did Kai turn into this awful person who wants to kill millions of people to get power? And you think that Kai would go in that direction, right? Because he had it even worse. No, he didn't. Because deep down, that's not who he is. But deep down, somehow it is who Kitt is. That's my perspective on it. But before I diss him further, he tells us about this disease, that it's actually man-made. This is something that his dad revealed to him in the letters. And yeah, his plan is to just spread it. And he already did it with the roses, the ones that were supposed to be a gesture of goodwill. They're actually infected, and he wants to infect that kingdom, so it's the first one to fall under his rule, under his command. The queen was smart enough to see that, and she doesn't blame Paedyn for it. Maybe, she saw it because she's secretly a sea monster, and her senses are heightened, and she kind of smelled that the roses were stinky, right? We'll see. Maybe we will find out more about her, I don't know, in the novella or later books or something. But yeah, that. And what else did we find out here? Essentially, that he was just jealous of Paedyn all along. He felt like she was stealing Kai from him. Kai was the only person that actually loved him. It's sad from that point of view that, Kitt didn't have anyone. He just had Kai. And when Paedyn came along, he felt like he didn't even have him. So see, Kitt, he was a delusional, unstable person all the time. He didn't have an identity. He didn't know who he was. The only thing he knew he had was Kai's love. And in his head, Paedyn took that away. So this direction that he went in, it's not all that strange. And, while Kai was away, while he was hunting Paedyn and Reckless, he had a lot of time to himself to think about it further, to brainstorm it even more, to overthink it and get lost in his head and his brains. It's ironic that in Reckless, people were gossiping about him, that he's losing his mind, that he's crazy. That's actually what happened in Fearless. So it was kind of foreshadowed if you think about it. And yeah, we also find out that Paedyn's dad, the one that took her in, he died because he found out about the plague. He found out that it's man-made and he had to be taken out because as the leader of the resistance, he was actually useful to the king. I mean, the king was the one who came up with it. He was like, let them, and then we'll bait them somewhere and kill them off, right? It was his plan all along, but he became a liability when he discovered the things about the plague. This was sad though. Bury me. Kitt takes several shallow breaths, then he smiles, under the willow tree. I won't be lonely there. My very soul feels as though it is splitting in two. I can't do this without you, Kitt. Please, please. He says nothing. His eyes drift shut. Ugh, and this was sad. I am only human. Yeah, okay, I feel for Kitt in the sense that he was kind of lonely his entire life. He just had Kai. So that is sad. It's a sad, lonely existence. But I more felt for Kai, right? Kai is literally the one who stabbed him. So he'll have to live with that, right? It was an accident, but it still happened, right? He still did it. He'll also feel guilty that he didn't realize sooner where Kitt's head was at, that he's losing himself, that he's feeling all these feels. When something happens to a loved one, you're always gonna kind of blame yourself. You could have done better. You could have done that. Well, in Kai's case, he actually did physically do something to him, and he'll have to live with this. So that sucks. And I felt so much for him there. That's why I almost cried. I didn't, which, if you know, I'm a very emotional reader. I cry a lot, but here I didn't, just because it was just so. What the fuck is happening? I couldn't process it. My brain literally couldn't process it. So how can I cry about it, right? I feel like Kitt is the biggest plot twist in this book. Everything about him is just didn't see it coming. And conclusion about Kitt is that I feel bad for the person he could have been. He had potential, I think. He was this sweet, delicate boy, I think, at one point. And he just craved his father's approval. But because he was so obsessed with this approval, he couldn't really find himself. He didn't know who he was. He had no opinions of his own. He just followed his dad. And that's something that's so hard for me to understand, because I understand, yeah, that you want to gain someone's approval, someone that you love. But if you see that that person is being awful to your brother, the person who you supposedly love the most in the world, and you see that he's torturing him, the way he's treating him, and this is still someone that you crave the approval of, now that's where it gets tricky for me to understand him or sympathize with him, because I could never, like I've stated this in my previous episodes, like if my parents treated my siblings like that, I love my parents and of course I want them to be proud of me, but if they treated my siblings like that, I'm my own person. I know that I would not agree with that. I know that I would be disgusted by it, and I would be like, well, fuck that. Why would I want to earn the respect of someone like that? So since I am this kind of a person, it's hard for me to understand someone that literally has no spine and that can stand up for himself and defend his brother when he needs him. And let's not talk about the fact that Kai is his younger brother. I had high hopes for Kitt that he might understand this eventually, and that he did in Reckless. I really thought he came to a point where he understood this, and in this book at the beginning I thought that my theory was confirmed. Yes, Kitt finally learned shit. He finally knows who he is. He finally stands up for something. He believes in something. He wants to be better. Great. But no, it turned out that he was the asshole from the first book all along. The one who doesn't stand up for his brother. The one who doesn't believe in anything but the things that his father preached to him his entire life, So like I said, you can learn from the bad experiences in your life and you can become better because of them, or you can become worse. And Kitt chose that path, right? He was always unstable, he was always delusional, and here it just exploded even more. And when he injected himself with the disease, it just pushed him over the edge, right? Yeah, I don't have much to discuss after this, really. Of course, Kai and Paedyn grieve Kitt, especially Kai. Paedyn is obviously sad for Kai. They bury him under the willow tree next to Ava, which is sad. I feel so bad for Kai. He's a good person. I feel bad for him. He lost the two people he really loved, Ava and Kitt, and now they're there together. And Kai and Paedyn, they get married under the willow tree, and, they will forever remember Kitt, and that's beautiful. They eventually also, 5 years later, we get a 5 years later, which is amazing, and they have a baby girl, and her name is Kitt, which I don't know if I like that much. I mean, why not name her Ava or Dina? I think that would make more sense. Not because Kitt isn't a feminine name. I mean, it can be either, right? But Kitt hated Paedyn. Like, if you think about it, till the very end, he kind of plotted to kill her. And he was obsessive with Kai, like obsessed with him. So I'm not sure if you really want to name your child after that kind of a person. You know what I mean? Like, fine, I'm not gonna dissect it too hard. Like, okay, Kai still loved Kitt, and Paedyn, I think she still saw, like I said before, the potential of Kitt. And then we got the epilogue, which I think was unnecessary because it was weird. Like, so Kitt is now in the afterlife, and there's this goddess of death or something, and her name is Mira or something, like something that starts with an M, and this was never mentioned before. I don't remember this book discussing gods ever, or like that there's a god that they believe in and that this god is called Mira or something. The death, right? Yeah. And Kitt, by the way, he's left wandering this afterlife by himself. He's lonely again. I'm like, what is the author trying to tell us here? In her head, I would assume, in Lauren's head, Kitt is just the ultimate evil. Even in the afterlife, instead of him being reunited with Iris, with his mom, right? He could be reunited with his mom. But no, he's just there by himself, feeling lonely again. And then 2 stars happen to visit him. It's like a male and a female voice. And at first, I thought it might be his mom, but then I was like, it's probably not his dad. His dad, he doesn't have that kindness in him. This doesn't make sense. He's probably somewhere burning in hell. Colum also doesn't make sense. He wasn't Kitt's dad, and he also wasn't really a good person. So I think actually it was Adina and Mac. I think it was them. Because also Paedyn a lot of times mentioned that now they're together, you know, in the sky together, Adina and Mac. And then when Kitt died, I think it was also like mentioned in this kind of a sense that now they're gonna be together, you know, like they're gonna be hanging out with each other or something among those lines. And I think this is it. And also the female voice of the star is described as warm and bubbly. And I assume that, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming this, I haven't read Powerful, but I would think that Adina's voice would be described as warm and bubbly, just because I feel like her personality was warm and bubbly. So I immediately associated this with Adina. So that warm, bubbly voice fills the void between them in response, until you see your brother again, if you like. The deep voice rumbles above him. We are all waiting for someone. Ugh, that's so sad. We are all waiting for someone. So yeah, I think it was Mac and Adina, and also what they said. So Kitt asks them, do you think I'm a monster? The female's voice is sad. No, you're your father's sins. You're not alone in that. This reassurance comes from the second star in a deep voice. I'm not sure about this one, like, hit me up if you know, but I assume what Mac had, you're not alone in that. He probably had some problems with his parents too, if he says this. And if then this is proof that it's Mac again, right? And Kitt says, but I am alone here. You two have one another. The softer star informs, life ripped us apart. That brought us together. The rougher voice finishes. Yeah, life tore them apart. Mac, Adina, and that brought them together. Mac and Adina. This is Mac and Adina. I think that's canon. Yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah. We're finally done. Oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours. I've been discussing this for 2 hours. I'm gonna have to edit this so much. Oh my god. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts about this book, your opinion, what you loved, what you hated, what's your opinion about Kitt. You know, did you cry about him? Were you sad? Are you mad with Lauren that she went in the direction she did? Or are you just like me and you're not that surprised by Kitt? For me, it makes sense that this happened with him. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it. I would prefer if he chose the light and if he was like a positive character. I would prefer that for him and a happy ending. Even if he died, that at least he had a happy afterlife or something. But I still do think that this does make sense for him. That he did kind of lose his mind and that he chose the dark path. I think it was always kind of foreshadowed, really. So let me know if you agree with that or if you don't. That's it actually for today. If you have the time, please subscribe to my channel, like this episode, rate it, whatever you can. It helps with discoverability and with growing this community. See you next week. Bye!